Macon, Georgia is known by many as being the church capital of the world. That's because we have a whole lot of churches, a whole lot of denominations, a whole lot of religions, and a lot of people brag about that. And a lot of people who come to Macon, talk about how there are so many churches. They say, hey, it's a church on every corner here. Well, I mean, that's true, but that's not what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about Macon being the music capital of the world. We've had, oh my God, so many artists and musicians and recording studios and all kinds of things associated with music. Red Wall Building, Capricorn Records, Otis Redding, Little Richard, James Brown, and all Arthur Ponder, all the local artists. And I'm gonna let my guest really give you an overview because this young man is not only a phenomenal musician, but he also is a phenomenal historian and a resource of information as it relates to music history and music in general and the playing of music and the famous artists and his experience working with Sam and Dave and a whole lot of other groups. And he even have delved into some historical information about local musicians and artists. And having owned a record shop for more than 4 decades, I am very, very interested in music. Now, unlike our guest here, I was not a musician. We went, I guess, to the same high school, and he was blowing that trumpet or trombone. Or I'm gonna let him tell you what all kind of instruments he played. But I'm gonna shut up and give the floor to none other. He got a start down at the Douglas, just all kind of good things. Then Mr. Newt Collier, how you doing, man?
Great, man. How you doing today?
I'm outstanding.
It
So,
is a pleasure to have me here and to
yes,
see you there.
yes, sir, yes, sir, and both of those are a pleasure because it could be the other way around.
Amen.
Uh, but let's start with you, man. First of all, congratulations not only on your musical talent, but I am privy to a lot of the information about artists and musicians that you post and that you talk about and that you present to the community. And then I'm very, very familiar with your head and your heart as it relates to music. But let's talk about you, man. Let's go way back to the beginning when you first got interested in music.
That goes all the way back into Tyndall Heights, which is about 16 acres on the south side of Macon, Georgia. And you come from there also. I come from there. We had what's called Project Unit, and we were just all one. Everybody knew everybody in Tyndall Heights. The Tyndall Field was a whole entire area, but Tyndall Heights was just 16 acres of property. That was just a bunch of kids that was ambitious. We had to play off of each other all the time because we didn't have really that many places to go to play. And we were both raised in the area. And my first interest in music was very young. I lived across the street from a lady named Johnny Mae Durham, and they had a band that was breaking up called the Panthers. And Johnny Jenkins was the actual guitar player for the group. And he started forming the group, and there was a guy hanging around that was like a gopher and sing sometime, name was Otis Redding. They put this group together, Johnny Jenkins and the Pine Toppers. Otis Redding turned out to be the luggage handler, basically, and he sung one or two songs. The group actually started performing at Mercer University for fraternities. So being a little kid, I couldn't go on those gigs, but when they were practice, I could sit on my aunt's steps. I couldn't go over there because they were older guys. My church lady was my aunt, big time, and there were girls going in and out the house. So that meant I was not to go across the street. And so I obliged, because if I had gone across the street, I wouldn't be here today. She might be just getting out of prison for beating me to death. But either way, they would practice over there, and I could hear what they were doing. And they had this trumpet player that used to come through and play with them. His name was Sammy Coleman. He was in the Air Force. So I had been taking, I knew music by playing piano. Now I'm interested in the trumpet. I had a little regular trumpet, which my mother told me I better pay for it over a few of the times. So I knew I had to get me a job somewhere. I wasn't about to work too hard. So I figured music gonna be the way I pay for it. So they let me hang around across the street. They kept paying attention to me. That's the easy way of saying it. And when they would go to Mercer sometimes, I would turn into the luggage boy to go for it. I went for this, I went for that. Now I'll help set up the equipment, and I'll always watch the way they played. And I saw the response they were getting from these college guys, and I said, I want to do that for real. And that's when I really started taking music seriously. And there was a lady named Gladys Williams, who was my piano instructor in the beginning, so I told her about it. She told me to go for it. And she started showing me the chords and changes to what they were doing. And I just kept practicing with this one guy that was at the Air Force band at the time. Excuse me. And he just kept teaching me different things. And next thing you know, the band was getting more gigs. And Otis started opening up this company called Red Wall Music at this time. Him and Theo Walden. Now, we're still doing the college shows. One night, Coleman couldn't make it. Somebody suggested they go get me. So they walked across the street and told my mother something. I don't know what they told my mother. I appreciate whatever they did, and I appreciate her for letting me go. Because after that first gig, they wanted to know, could I take the job permanently? So I didn't understand that at the time. I just knew Coleman was coming back. But found out Coleman was moving on to join Otis Redding's band, and that was my spot. And so now I'm ended up having to go downtown to Field Wall and Arts and Promotions, which is across the street on Cotton Avenue, to Red Wall, and not see Otis. And Otis said, hey, I see you working, you doing, you know, you here, man, come on, stick with me. I said, I want to stick with you. I'm still trying to put all this in my head, what I'm supposed to do. So we started going on these different shows, different places. My first tour was these college, University of Alabama, University of Georgia. We'd go down into Mississippi, all the different, like Vanderbilt and places like that, just going to do these shows. So I started getting better and better. And Coleman would tell me, man, I hear you doing good, you're doing good. So I told him, thank you. So he's with Otis Redding now. Lo and behold, we playing at the Armory over on Anthony Road. I'm one of two horn players. They bring a band in called Leroy Lord and the Swinging Dukes from Augusta, Georgia, a 9-piece band. So I'm outshot there with the horns. They have 1, 2, 3 or 4 horns. All these guys are military guys. I'm realizing I'm outgunned. So I screamed and raised as much noise as I could with my horn. And after the show that night, they asked me if I would like to go to Augusta to join them. I said, what? They said, you can go. And I did exactly that. And after I did that, I stayed with them for a while in Augusta. They started playing all over the place. And they said one night, excuse me, one of the guys said, you wait till you see the band director. I said, oh, who's the band director? They said, a guy named Maceo. I said, who? Now, his brother's name was Melvin Parker. He was a drummer. Now, I never heard of Maceo. So we were playing this little club called the Ambets Club on 9th and Gwinnett. All of a sudden, the door opened. He said, here he comes. And I thought James Brown had walked in. All these people flocking to the door. And it's like a ceremony. It's like the king has arrived. So he come up on stage. He said, we're going to step it up now. Remember that fancy stuff you're going to be doing like James Brown? He said, now we're going to do it. Maceo takes his horn out, step up on stage on one leg, go across, put his horn behind his back, and do some James Brown. I'm standing there playing and looking and said, what in the world? I thought James Brown show was in Macon or somewhere. And here he is doing the James Brown, and he turns around and stopped the band and said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The women just went crazy. Instead of playing jazz and the slow songs, we went immediately into a James Brown show. The crowd went wild. I said, now, how do you turn the switch on? This is it. And that was my first impression of how a band's supposed to act. I said, I see what happens. And so they had a few of all of them had an artist called Sam and Dave they were booking. The artist came to Augusta. They wanted me to go down and play with them. So I went down, told Leroy, he said, go on. So I went down. They asked me after the show, do I want to travel? I said, uh-oh. I said, yes. That was the right word. I packed my stuff up, brought it back home to my mama Macon, took one bag and my two horns, my trumpet and my trombone. Jumped on the bus with Sam and Dave. That lasted for 15 years. I just get off the bus. I just stayed with them. And found out Otis Redding was booking the show all the time. So I happened to be home on break one year. And I happened to be coming through down on Campbell Avenue, going back to my aunt's house. And Otis pulled up beside me. Hey, man, how you doing? I said, hey, bro, how you doing? He said, how you like working with those guys? I said, good. He said, I knew the right thing was going to happen to you. I said, oh. So I went on home and didn't think of it. I said, wait a minute, well, why did he say it like that? I put two and two together. I said, I got it. And so we got back in the office. The next couple of days, I saw him in the office. I said, thank you very much, Otis, for doing that. He said, I figured you'll get it right sooner or later. And that's how I actually got started. And that was basically it. And I stayed with them all the way through the 70s.
Okay, that's so outstanding. And, you know, and evidently you were a phenomenal horn player. And I'm glad you mentioned that you played both the trumpet and the trombone. And you were with Sam and Dave for 15 years. But what generated what generates your music? Because you not only, talk about your experiences in music, but, very recently, I saw you did some posting on individual musicians from Macon.
Right.
Some of them who went to national fame and some of them who went to local fame. So talk a little bit about those musicians and what really generated your interest in that.
Well, I learned something a long time ago. In the music business, when you slow down like I did, if you don't reach back and pull someone behind you,
say that.
They will never be able to go anywhere, or they will never think of you as anything. You have to always reach back and grab someone. They might not believe you at the first time, but if you keep knocking, it's like making a house. You might be nailing a nail, then you just broke the first crack. Then you miss. That's okay. Keep banging on it. You're gonna have to get that nail in there, and it's gonna be solid. And so I just wanted to let the guys know that I crossed the bridge. Now, this is the way that I crossed it. I'm not saying this is the correct way, but this is one of the ways I crossed the bridge. I went over there, went out there, went around there. I want to take them around there and let them see exactly how the door is open so you can go into that door and come back and do the same thing. Pick up a 20-year-old kid. Might not know nothing about anything about no more than I want to play. I would like to teach them the business, how to take care of the money, how to go out there and play your horn. And it's not 100%, it's 110%. Be the loudest horn player out there. Well, not really the loudest, but show that you can do the job. Nobody out there. A good example is Prince. Prince was nobody until he started dancing and showing out. And then everybody said, oh, that's Prince. That's basically the way it works.
How about the local, name some of those local artists that you mentioned in your post, just to give them some play and say a little something about each one and kind of
Okay,
hurry up because I want to get into a couple of other things.
okay. As they said, I would like to make a little shout out to Bo Ponder. You mentioned him earlier. Bo was our little Otis Redding before a lot of people could think about. Bo is a young man out of South Macon. He's still active and he has a voice. If you want to hear some Bobby Womack, check out Bo. Now you want to hear some early renditions of early Otis Redding? Bo could do that. He's been around. He has the knowledge, and I hope you stay around in order to put the knowledge out there a little bit more. Another person I'd like to give a shout out to is a guy named Jimmy Braswell, smooth singer. We all worked at the club called the Key Club for Clint Bradley. Clint had an army of people. I mean, it must have been 50 of us. And he would rotate us in. Oscar Mack was another young man. He went on, he passed now. He went on to Detroit. And he was with James Duncan, Donnie Collier, and Speedo Sims. They would go around and they would be the early Manhattans. Speaking of the Manhattans, there are three guys in the Manhattans, George, Blue, and James Bivens are from Macon, Georgia, in the Manhattans.
Wow.
Most people did not know that. There was another lady I sort of proud of that came out of the Bellevue area. Her name was Randy Crawford. Most people know her as the Crusaders, Street Life. Now I can go on and on and on and on because there's a list that is longer than the number of churches that are in Macon. These are just the 50s and 60s. I have not gone back further with some of the older guys. One of the older ones is I would like to think about is Mr. Charles Collier. He owned a show called The Silas Green Show. If you put that up, that was an old tent show. Now in the band was at one time with Muddy Waters. Nipsey Russell was the MC for a long time. Butterbeans and Susie. And I'm talking to some old heads now. And now there's a saxophone player called Annette Coleman, who spent a year and a half around Macon, Georgia with that particular band. So it must be something in the water, something. What I always said was by Macon being in the center, Highway 41, north, south, Highway 80, east, west. How can you miss? If you're coming from Savannah, you got to come through Macon to get to Columbus. Now think about it, north, south, straight through the mountains from Atlanta. The next place you're gonna hit, Macon, Georgia. And the water, you have to drink the water. And then they can't leave. That's what I have to say.
That's outstanding. Well, what about, let me ask you something, Newt. Maybe at some point, you need to take an initiative, and I don't know whether it exists now. I know we had the Music Hall of Fame and, it closed, but, one thing that really bothers me is that we don't need to lose our history, and I don't know whether there's an encaption way of memorializing and remembering and documenting, this information. So, you might need to look at, establishing a new Collier website or some kind of vehicle. And I'll talk to you about that at a later date, but this information should be captured, and now's the time, with some pictures and a small bio of all of these people. And I'm sure that we can get some assistance with this. So what are you doing now? How do you just keep the legacy going. The Newt Collier trombone and trumpet. Do you still play it all?
I play electric trumpet, and I can switch it over to a trombone sound. It's computer age computer. I play a computer, electronic trumpet. Now you have people that have synthesizers. That's basically what I have. It's a wind-blown synthesizer, and I actually play now.
Okay,
I
but
haven't played. It's hard playing against all the guitars because I can. I have to actually hum. I don't buzz no more. My lips and everything are gone. I'm old. They're shot. That I have to admit, they don't work like they used to up there. And I have this electric horn in which I actually hum. I have a special built mouthpiece, and it's instantaneously. I can actually play a fast song. It'll come out just as I put it in. It's all
wow,
computerized.
wow, that's outstanding, man. Well, just keep on playing, and because you've got a phenomenal craft, and I really appreciate what you do, and I want to, just publicly thank you for your interest in music, for your unselfishness, because you praise those other people more than you try to heap praise upon yourself. And I think that's the way that things ought to be. And as a person who has been yeah, I'm not there anymore, but my sister owns Havisham Record, but as a person who has been associated with music going on 50 years, and I really appreciate you, because too often we tend to forget what music, talent, songs, performances mean and have meant to our community. So I just really appreciate you for keeping that legacy alive. So let me ask you a question. Are there any projects or initiatives desires, as it relates to music that you have on the drawing board, or that you would like to see on the drawing board, or that you would like to see the community do? Because we don't need to lose the fact, and then we look, I mean, sure, there are some problems in our community, and we've got some things going on that get a lot of publicity. But then, the good things, both from a present and a historical perspective, greatly outweigh, all that negativity that's going on in the community. So are you doing anything maybe to shed some positive light, particularly from a musical perspective on, what's going on?
Yes, I have a little project. You touched on some of it. The posting of some of these people that are unknown. To me, it's called "For Those That Played But Never Got Paid" idea. It was never discovered too. That's another part of it. These are the local musicians that have played around Macon, probably never left Macon no further than Atlanta, maybe to Savannah. That story needs to be told. Some of these are fantastic musicians. And my whole thing is to build either, like you said, either a website, and I go to the library and I dig up these people, dig up the events, and dig up the names of people that are associated with some of these events. And I try and talk about them and give a little history and background to them. I have a couple of notebooks that were just loaded with all kinds of names of people. And I would like to find either in the library something I call the standing files. Take a person's name and write as much of bio as I can. Leave it in there just in case somebody from Westland, Mercer, or something in the music department may want to do a paper, a thesis, write a book, something on them. They can go to these files. Okay, here's the information on blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. They can enter that into that and take the names of the people that have made it big. Write down all the information of all the sub players, the side men, the people that took care of their clothes, people that, the valet, the little lady that did all the stitching and all the cleaning up the houses for them and everything. Have them listed. They are important people. They all breathe the same air we breathe. God's air. Whoops, now you go. We all need to have that formula, but we need to take care of each other, pass it down, and pass it all the way down to the kids. Have the kids in grammar school do projects. Just to keep them out the streets. We grew up in the library. Go to the library now, see how many kids in there.
Yeah.
They need to know. This is their second education. This is now we can go to the library, use the library, burn it up. They can throw you out there at night. That's no problem.
Yeah.
That means you learned something.
Yeah. That is outstanding. And I want to congratulate you and praise you again because you deserve the recognition. So now tell me about that star.
Okay. The star at the Douglas. That was what was it, 19, been a couple of years now, 19, they put the star down. That came from Dr. Lance. It's a group in Atlanta called the Atlanta Black Theater. They came up with the concept of doing that for me. I got a call from Dr. Lance. They want to talk to me about putting a star in front of the Douglas Walk of Fame. Each year they do one. And I just happened to be there in the right place to have that star done. And that was because of my legacy and my future, I hope, for other people to come by and say, oh, there he stands. There he lay on the ground. You know.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so deserving. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. You know, having interviewed Mr. Newt Collier, musician, historian, community activist, researcher, and one who and famous, the one with a star at the Douglas. Again, I want to congratulate you, and you and I will get together on trying to encapsulate all of this information and come up with an initiative to reserve this history because we certainly do not want to lose it. Let me ask you a question. If somebody wants to get in touch with you to try to, assist you in what you're doing, to learn more about what you're doing, how can they reach you?
Well, I'm available. A lot of people say, if you want to find Newton, ask any policeman downtown. He's walking around down there all the time. But my address is 523 Cherry Street. I'm in apartment 312. That's the Dempsey, the mainstay of downtown. And that's Macon, Georgia, 31201. My phone number is 478-305-4069. Have an email, newtcoll, NEWTCOLL @hotmail.com.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you're going to get some calls from individuals who want to help. I appreciate your taking the time to impart on us all of this phenomenal history about music and Macon and the history of music and all of that good information. And you all will hear more from Newt Collier and Alex Habersham as it relates to that musical legacy of Central Georgia. We appreciate your watching and listening. Keep in mind that this show is available on YouTube, Alex Habersham YouTube, and it's also available on a podcast. Excuse me, iHeart Media and Spotify. So be sure, to watch this show and share it with your friends. because information is phenomenal and important, and information can make a difference, can make a meaningful difference in the betterment of our community. And Mr. Newt Collier, musician, trombone, and trumpet player.
Thank you, sir.
Extraordinary,
Thank you.
extraordinary,
Thank you.
extraordinary. Is doing a phenomenal job. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Thank you, Mr. Collier.
Thank you very much. Well, a pleasure. It's been a pleasure just talking with you. We need to do this more often and get more people involved that can come on and get a series of people coming on behind me. Let's make this some kind of series. You made me think of something else, and we will talk on that. Thank you so much for enlightening the ideas in my head. And I can't execute all my words, but I tell you what, by the time we get through talking and across the table, you will understand where I'm coming from.
All right, this is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, having talked with Mr. Newt Collier, the person who is memorialized at the Douglas Theater with a star right in front of the Douglas. Have a great day.